The Tuscan sun casts a golden glow over rolling hills and cypress-lined roads, painting a picture of timeless beauty. Each morning, the countryside awakens beneath a sky brushed with soft pastels, and the air is filled with the promise of another perfect day. This is the Tuscany that lives in the world's imagination, a place where every view is a postcard, every moment a memory in the making. Tourists come for the art, the wine, and the romance. Italy, as a dream. They wander through sunlit piazzas, marvel at Renaissance masterpieces, and sip Chianti in the shade of ancient olive trees. For many, Tuscany is the very heart of La Dolce Vita, a place where life feels richer, slower, and more meaningful. The region's culture is woven into daily life, from lively markets to the aroma of fresh bread drifting from family-run bakeries. It's a land where tradition and beauty seem inseparable. The Made in Italy label promises luxury and quality, a brand built over centuries. It conjures images of skilled hands, fine materials, and a legacy of excellence passed down through generations. But just outside Florence, another Tuscany exists, Prato, the industrial heart of Italian textiles. Here, the landscape shifts from vineyards to smokestacks, and the hum of machinery replaces birdsong. Warehouses and factories sprawl across the land, replacing the villas and vineyards that once defined the region. The air is thick with the scent of dye and fabric, a far cry from the sweet smell of grapes. Prato's reputation was once built on skilled artisans and world-class fabrics. Generations of craftspeople poured their passion into every thread, creating textiles that were the envy of the world. Today, the global demand for fast fashion has transformed the town. The race to produce more, faster, and cheaper has left little room for tradition or pride. Thousands of migrants arrive, drawn by the hope of opportunity. They come from distant lands, chasing the promise of a better life, willing to work hard for a chance at stability. Instead, they find themselves in a hidden world of exploitation. Long hours, low pay, and unsafe conditions become their reality, far from the dreams that brought them here. Sweatshops operate in the shadows, far from the eyes of tourists. Behind closed doors, workers toil in silence, their struggles invisible to the outside world. The Made in Italy label, once a mark of pride, now masks a system of modern slavery. The promise of quality and heritage is tainted by the suffering hidden beneath the surface. Luxury garments begin their journey here, in grim factories, not artisan studios. The hands that sew these clothes are often weary, their stories untold. The story behind these clothes is not one of craft, but of suffering. Each stitch is a testament to endurance, not artistry. This is the side of Italian fashion the world tries to ignore. The glamour on display in shop windows hides a reality few want to see. The shadows of the Tuscan sun are long, and they hide a troubling truth. Beneath the beauty, a darker story unfolds, one that challenges the very image of Tuscany itself. In December 2013, a devastating fire tore through a textile factory in Prato, Italy, sending thick black smoke billowing into the winter sky. The blaze quickly consumed the building, drawing emergency crews from across the city. Firefighters rushed in, expecting to battle a typical industrial fire. But what they found inside was far worse than anyone could have imagined, a scene that would haunt them for years. The factory was not just a workplace, it was also a home for dozens of workers, who lived, ate, and slept among the humming machines and piles of fabric. Mattresses were wedged between sewing tables, and personal belongings were scattered across the floor. Barred windows and locked doors turned the factory into a deadly trap. When the fire broke out, there was no way out. The exits were blocked, and the workers were left with nowhere to run. 7 Chinese workers lost their lives that night, trapped inside the inferno. Their families and friends gathered outside the ruins, mourning in silence as the city grappled with the scale of the tragedy. The disaster sent shockwaves through Italy, forcing the nation to confront a hidden reality that had been ignored for too long. In the days that followed, police launched raids across Prato, uncovering hundreds of similar workshops. These cramped, unsafe, and illegal factories were hidden in plain sight, operating behind closed doors. Workers, many of them migrants, slept beside their sewing machines, working grueling hours for pay that was a fraction of the legal minimum wage. Exhaustion and fear were constant companions. They had no contracts, no legal protections, and no voice to speak out against their exploitation. Their hands bore the marks of endless labor, their faces etched with fatigue and resignation. The fire exposed a vast underground economy built on the backs of vulnerable workers, an entire shadow industry thriving on exploitation and secrecy. This was not an isolated incident, but evidence of a system that spanned entire neighborhoods, one factory among many, all operating under the same dangerous conditions. The Made in Italy label, once a symbol of quality and craftsmanship, was being used to sell clothes made in misery, hiding the suffering behind a facade of luxury. As the smoke cleared over the ruins, the truth could no longer be hidden. The world was forced to see what lay beneath the surface of Italy's fashion industry. Authorities began to realize the scale of the problem, launching investigations and promising reforms. But the damage had already been done. Behind the glamour of high-end boutiques and luxury brands, invisible suffering had become part of the cost of doing business. The fire was a wake-up call Italy could no longer ignore, a tragedy that demanded change, and a reckoning for an industry built on hidden pain. The investigation after the fire uncovered more than labor abuse. It revealed a partnership between Chinese factory owners and Italy's mafia, especially the Camorra. The mafia didn't sew, they ran the system. They offered protection, made legal problems disappear, and took a cut at every stage. In return, factory owners could ignore laws and pay rock-bottom wages. The mafia controlled logistics, smuggled workers, and laundered money. Trucks moved goods at night, and workers arrived through criminal networks. Every luxury shirt and fast fashion dress carried a hidden tax, money for organized crime. The Made in Italy label became a front for a vast criminal enterprise. The profits fueled not just fashion, but the mafia's power across Europe. Behind the glamour, the industry was built on exploitation and crime. The Camorra's control was total. They dominated every step, from raw materials to finished garments. Mafia-run trucking companies supplied factories and moved goods across Europe. Their shadow logistics were faster and cheaper than legal alternatives. They handled waste disposal illegally, dumping toxins and polluting the countryside. Money laundering made dirty profits look clean. The mafia was woven into the industry's DNA, profiting from every transaction. The Made in Italy label financed organized crime. Luxury for some meant power, and pollution for the mafia. When the system began to unravel, the hidden stories of the workers finally came to light. For years their voices had been drowned out by the hum of machines and the relentless pace of production, but now their experiences could no longer be ignored. Lin, a young man from rural China, sacrificed everything for a chance to build a better life in Italy. He left behind his family, his home, and all that was familiar, driven by hope and the promise of opportunity. But upon arrival, his passport was confiscated. Lin found himself trapped, forced to work endlessly to pay off a crushing debt that only seemed to grow. 18-hour days blurred into each other, 7 days a week, in suffocating, windowless rooms filled with the constant whir of sewing machines. The air was thick with exhaustion and the pressure to meet impossible quotas. At night, Lin slept on a thin mattress in a cramped corner of the factory, surrounded by the same machines he worked on by day. There was no privacy, no comfort, just the hope that one day things might change. His wages were meager, barely enough to survive. Most of what he earned was taken back by his employer for lodging, food, and endless deductions for the debt he owed. Fear was a constant companion. Workers like Lin stayed silent, terrified of threats, deportation, violence, or even harm to their families back home if they spoke out. Isolated by language and culture, unable to speak Italian, they were cut off from the outside world and powerless to seek help. Ironically, these workers crafted exquisite garments for the world's most prestigious luxury brands, yet they themselves could not afford even a single shirt they made. The contrast was cruel. Their skilled labor created beauty and wealth, but their own lives remained bleak, marked by hardship and deprivation. In the eyes of the industry, they were invisible cogs in a vast machine, valued only for their output, not their humanity. For many, the dream of Italy, a land of opportunity and beauty, became a nightmare of exploitation and broken promises. Their stories, once hidden in the shadows, now reveal the true cost of fast fashion, a cost paid in human lives and dignity. Factory conditions were appalling: unsafe wiring, toxic air, no medical care. Injuries meant dismissal, not treatment. Owners created total dependency by confiscating passports and inflating debts. Workers owed tens of thousands, trapped in modern servitude. The dream of a better life faded into a daily struggle for survival. Shame and isolation kept them silent. The factory became their entire world, a closed loop of exploitation. Many endured, hoping for escape, but years passed in limbo. They made luxury goods, but their own freedom was denied. Their dignity was stolen, replaced by fear and humiliation. The hands that created beauty lived in darkness. For years, the system survived, but in 2023, authorities struck back. Operation Golden Cloth launched massive raids across Prado. Hundreds of officers hit dozens of factories, warehouses, and homes. They found workers sleeping beside machines, living in squalor. Translators reassured them they were being rescued, not arrested. Dozens of arrests followed, from factory owners to mafia-linked managers. Evidence seized, cash, records, incriminating messages. The raids dismantled the criminal network's core. For many workers, it was the end of a nightmare. The system had finally been exposed. Authorities seized over 100 million euros in assets, factories, trucks, luxury cars, and bank accounts. The money trail revealed a global laundering scheme. Hundreds of workers were freed, finally treated with dignity. Aid organizations helped regularize their status and offered support. Their testimony was vital to prosecuting traffickers and mafia bosses. The legal fallout was huge: charges of trafficking, slavery, and organized crime. The case exposed the dark side of the fashion industry. But the problem was bigger than one town. The fight against modern slavery was far from over. Prado's story forces us to question the Made in Italy label. Sometimes, it hides suffering and exploitation behind a facade of luxury. The problem isn't just Italian, it's global, driven by fast fashion's demand for cheap labor. As consumers, we have power. Ask questions, support transparent brands, and buy less but better. True quality means respecting the people who make our clothes. The fight for ethical fashion is a fight for human dignity. It needs stronger laws, corporate accountability, and conscious consumers. The Prado raids were a start, not the end. The real value of a label is found in the lives behind it. Next time you shop, remember the story stitched into every seam.